haven't been to a webinar and I haven't met yet, my name is Shelley McCollum, and I'm an instructional specialist with Remote Learning and a member of our Learning Spaces training team. And today we're going to be talking about Remote Learners Reporting and Analytics Solution. And we call it a full solution because there are a lot of different components that go into the reporting and analytics features of your remote learner hosted LMS. So we're going to kind of cover the gamut today. I know a lot of people are really excited about our new partnership with IntelAboard, and I promise we're going to spend a lot of time on that. But we're actually going to start out with some more basic reports just to make sure that everyone has a full understanding of all of the reporting capabilities that their LMS site has. So we're going to start off with, again, I said some basics. We're going to be looking at the logs. Moodle itself actually has a number of reports, a variety of reports that are available to everyone on any standard Moodle site. So I just want to make sure that you understand what comes on a standard Moodle site so that we can look at what strengths it has, what you may not have already been using that you already had access to, and then we can also talk a little bit about what's kind of missing from the Moodle reporting solution and what Remote Learner is doing to address those gaps to help you get a more complete picture of the usage of your site. So most of your Moodle reporting features are going to be found in your administration block. Now, if you're a site administrator, we're going to start with those. You'll have an entire section that actually says reports. And when you open that up, you see there are quite a few reports available to you. And typically the most powerful of these, the ones that you're going to be able to get the most data from, are going to be what we consider log reports. Now, Moodle itself is actually logging just about every click that's made on this site. And starting with version 2.7, they actually completely restructured the logging system to make it more comprehensive and more easily searchable. And you can actually go in and look at what they call the events list under reports, and this is available for site administrators. So you can look at the event list, and the events list is going to give you a complete accounting of every type of action that Moodle is going to be recording data for. Now, this is not a report itself. You don't get any information about how frequently these events occur in the events list itself. So what this is really for is to give you some information about how to better search the other reports and logs that are available to you, as well as things like if you have upgraded your site from a version prior to 2.6, if there's a different event in legacy logs that you might need to look for if you need to find older information. So basically, you can go through here to find the names of particular events you're looking for, but also the education level assigned to the event, whether or not this is an event that is considered a participating event. Those are typically things that students might do, like submitting an assignment for grading or posting a reply to a forum. Or if this event is considered a teaching event, like a badge being awarded in a course, or someone creating a new lesson, adding a new lesson to a course, that would be considered a teaching event. Or if it's going to be considered what they call an other event. Those would be things that aren't really related to a specific course necessarily, so that would be logging into the site as a whole. That would also include things like any kind of work you might do in the messaging that's built into Moodle. Why am I pointing all of this out to you? Well, the logs in Moodle themselves are all filterable, and you can sort and filter them based on types of events. So if you're not sure which settings to use in the filtering system for the logs, if you go and look in the events list, that might help you kind of narrow it down so that when you're filtering the larger set of data in the logs, you can help narrow your focus to the information that you're really looking for. So the events list comes in handy. I kind of call it like a key. It's like your map key to your logs, so you know exactly what it is you're supposed to be looking for. Now, as far as the log reports themselves, there are actually 3 different reports that we consider log reports. And the first one I want to point out to you would be the config changes reports. And again, this one's going to be more interesting for site administrators in particular. Teachers wouldn't actually have access to this. But for you site administrators, this is going to show you anytime a change is made to a site-wide setting. So something like if an element of the theme has been updated, or if someone has turned on or off different features. For example, you can see logging here has been altered at some point for Kaltura, or linking course sections, so auto-linking within courses was originally the original values over here was originally turned off and now it's turned on. So to see those configuration and setting changes that are made at the at the site level, you would go into the config changes report. The nice thing about the config changes, you can't really filter, but you can sort by clicking on any of the headings at the top of the screen so that you can look for a specific setting, or you might be looking at a specific date, or if it's related to a specific plugin. So you can sort through that. It makes it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for. And if something suddenly starts acting crazy on your site, you can always go and see, has something recently been changed? And if it has, because I can sort by date, if it has recently been changed, then I have the ability to look at the original value versus the new value, and I can always go into that setting and change the value back to see if that corrects whatever my recent problem is. So it's a nice troubleshooting tool for site administrators to be able to use. Now, more interestingly, and this is going to be applied to teachers as well, so if you're a course facilitator, not necessarily a site admin, you're going to like these too, because you have access to logs and live logs from within your course as well. So within a specific course, if you go into the, excuse me one second while I go into a course. Within a specific course, if you go into your course administration menu, you also have a reports option that shows up. And here you have logs and live logs. And these are going to function the exact same way that they function at the site administration level. The only difference is going to be when you go into them, your course would be the only one already selected. Now, if I went in at the site level as a site administrator, I could choose from any of the courses on the site, or I could choose to look at the site as a whole. Okay, so it's one of the filtering options, and if you go in within a course, the filter for that specific course has already been set. Now, you can filter your logs further by choosing a specific participant from within a course. You can look at all days or at a specific date for activity. You can look at a specific activity or module within your course, right? So I could see if I have anything on this one. You can choose the type of action, and remember I said that events list can help you kind of determine what events constitute what type of action, or just look at all actions. You can choose education level, just like we discussed in the events list. And then you would click the Get These Logs button. Now, I picked an individual student for an individual activity, and apparently she has not done anything that has anything to do with that specific assignment. So I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to choose all activities, whoops, so that you can at least see kind of what the logs would look like. Now, I can make a change to my filter at any time and then click Get These Logs, and it's going to show me all of the data for this course related to this user over all of the days that they've been involved in that course. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about logs is that they are somewhat interactive. So if anything is a hyperlink, if I click on that hyperlink, it's going to give me more information about whatever it is I click. So if I click on Mary's name, it's going to take me to her profile page, and I can see her full profile. If I click on the event name, it's going to take me into that part of the course where that event took place so that I can get more information. So in this case, it's taking me into the assignment, and I would be able to go in and look at her submission. Okay? And it also tells me where it occurred, all of that information. Now, the wonderful thing about logs that some people are not aware of is the fact that if you scroll to the bottom of your log screen, you actually have a download option. So you can download the logs after you've filtered them. So exactly what I'm seeing on the screen now, I could download that as a spreadsheet file. Now, I could then take that spreadsheet file and I could manipulate it and have my spreadsheet program do whatever kind of analysis I wanted by using any type of formulas that I wanted to create in the spreadsheet. And I could eventually extrapolate that data into the form of some graphs and charts that I could share for reporting purposes if I wanted to. Here's where you run into a limitation to Moodle's reporting system, is that it doesn't do any of that for you automatically. There's not a way to say, I want you to display this as a graph. You only have the option to download it and then manipulate it yourself on your own computer in your own time. So something to keep in mind. Now, other than the logs, we also have the live logs, and I just want to point this out. I don't think this is used as frequently by teachers as it might be by site administrators, but the live logs are going to give you the same information that you saw in the log screen. But notice you have no filtering capability. I can't have it focus in on a specific class and watch that class in real time. I have to watch the entire site, right? Unless I am a teacher within my course, and then I can do that. I can look at that specific course if anything's going on. Now, if you're looking at the site level and you have an extremely large site or an extremely busy site, then you might find the Pause Live Updates button to be very useful to you, because this live logs page is going to scroll. The information is going to continue to update just like a live feed while you're watching it. So on a very busy site, it's constantly rolling. The information is constantly rolling. And Moodle will default to display approximately an hour's worth of data on the live log screen. So if you're looking for anything that happened more than an hour ago, you're going to have to go into your regular logs to see what's happened. Okay? But you do have the ability to pause it, and then once you're done looking at specific events, then you can come back up and resume it, and then the updates, the log entries, will kind of catch up to the current time. So those are some useful things that are built in, and these again are standard. So anyone that has a Moodle site and anyone that's got a remote learner hosted site has access to all of this information. And it really is logging just about every event that occurs. It's just not in the most user-friendly format. Now, there are a couple of other things that I just want to make sure I point out for those site administrators out there so that I know that they know what else is available to them as far as information when they're monitoring and managing their site. And these are some of the overview reports that Moodle develops for you. So you really have two that are called overviews. You have a performance overview and you have a security overview. And again, both of these are going to be accessed from within your site administration menu under the Reports section. Now I'm going to pull up the Performance Overview. Performance Overview is very short, but this is a nice little list. If you start to notice that you might be having some slow or sluggish response times on your server, this would be the first place I would go. And typically it's going to show you settings that are site-wide settings that have been reported throughout the Moodle community to have impacts on server performance. And so some of you may know of some of these. For example, the designer mode. If you have your site in designer mode, it doesn't anything. So every time a user clicks a page, that entire page has to reload from scratch, and that can slow down page load times. And so we have noticed in the past that people will go in and they'll be working on designing their theme, and they'll turn on designer mode because it makes it easier and quicker to work on your theme, but then they forget to turn it off. Now, because of this, most of the issues that are listed in the performance overview are settings that Remote Learner has already configured to the most efficient setting, the optimal setting, and we have locked those settings. Now that doesn't mean that you can't ever have these unlocked. You can always request through a support ticket to have one of the performance settings changed. We just discourage you from doing that because we know they cause performance issues and we don't really want them to slow your site down. But you can always go in and you can look, and depending on what plugins you have added to your site, you may have more or less issues listed in your performance overview. And let me clarify the language on that. Just because it calls it an issue does not mean it is negatively impacting anything, right? It's just kind of a known issue, but you're really wanting to look at the value here. And if these are green, that means that it's functioning at its optimal level. It's not causing a problem. If there were an issue, if there were a real problem, if the setting was something that could be affecting performance, it would be color-coded red. Okay, so if you have some other plugins, you may have some options in here that are not controlled by Remote Learner. So keep that in mind. We try to help you out as much as we can, but if you have some other plugins, there may be something on there. And clicking on any of these will give you some more information about what's known about how it might affect your site's functioning. And then you can always go in and edit this setting. You click the edit button and it'll take you directly into that setting. But again, most of the time in the performance overview, the majority of things are going to be controlled by Remote Learner just to help prevent any issues. Now the security overview looks very similar. It does the red and green as well as a brown warning status for you to let you know. Many of these will also be controlled by Remote Learner, but again, there might be things such as different users' accounts and the way you have users configured that, or roles configured that you still have control over. So it's always a good idea as a site administrator just to visit the security overview screen. It's always important not to panic if you see something, especially if you see something that says it's red and that it's critical. If you have any questions about anything that comes up on that, I would highly encourage you to put a ticket into the support portal and let our technicians look at it and let you know whether or not they feel something needs to be changed or not. You know, sometimes you do have to make some changes to your site to get it to function appropriately for your organization and your users. So these are really recommended settings, right? So every now and then people will make exceptions to them, but it's always a good thing to check it out. Now the last overview type report that I wanted to point out to you was the question instances. So if you go back into that site administration menu and back into the reports, you'll see a question instances. And this is really helpful if you have a large number of quizzes being used on your site, especially if you're about to do any kind of upgrade, or if you are having problems in one class with a quiz functioning properly. Maybe it has something to do with the type of questions that are in the quiz. A specific question isn't functioning right. You can always come in here, and basically what you do is you choose which question type you want to look for, and then you click Get the Report, and it's going to give you a list of all of the instances of that question across your entire site. And it actually breaks them down in context. First, it's just going to give you like general within each course, how many are in the course and how many are being used. But then as you scroll down the report, it will then switch to specific quizzes. So you can look at individual quizzes or you can look in an actual course. And if you click on any of those links, it's going to take you into the question bank for that specific context. So it's a great way for running some troubleshooting, doing some testing. Also, like I said, if you're going to do some type of upgrade and maybe you have a question type that's not going to be supported by the new version, or you downloaded a separate plugin for a specific question type and that plugin has not been updated yet for the next version, you might want to check and make sure is anyone using that plugin, because you don't want an upgrade to start causing any issues. So just a very informative report that's available to you. And again, that is standard. Now within the course reports, we already talked about the logs, but there are several other reports that are available for teachers. And some of these get overlooked quite frequently. So I'm going to go back into my course and into my reports section. And we're going to look at two completion reports. You have a course completion report and an activity completion report. Now these two will only display if you have completion tracking turned on for your course. Okay, so if you have completion tracking turned on, then if you have any activities that you have assigned completion criteria to, they will appear in the activity completion list. And this really is just kind of a checklist, shows all of the users in your course, all of the activities for which completion criteria has been established, right? And it's going to check them off as each student meets the completion criteria for that specific module in your course. So it's a really quick at-a-glance way to be able to track your students' progress through all of the course materials. And this is another one of the few reports in Moodle that you can actually download as a spreadsheet. And then if you wanted to somehow throw some formulas in your spreadsheet and do some analysis and create some type of graphs, you could do that. But again, you're going to have to do that on your own. Moodle does not do that for you. The course completion report is very similar to the activity completion. It's going to show you all of the criteria that have been established for the course in terms of what is required for course completion, right? So if you've set course completion for your course, this is where you would go to look to see how your students are progressing towards completion. And again, this one is downloadable as a spreadsheet. You just click it and it's going to pop it down to your computer, and then you can do with the data whatever you need. Now they also have an activity report, and this is kind of interesting because it's going to give teachers a good overview of what pieces of their course are the most active. So what resources are students looking at most frequently? What activities are they participating in? What specific forum is a popular forum? So it's a great way of kind of gauging engagement in specific course activities. Now, this is really nice if you're looking within a single course, but there's really not anything built into Moodle that's going to allow you to really compare one course to another, unless you're going to download the entire site's logs and then put them in a spreadsheet, and you're going to write the formulas and figure out how that's going to be analyzed. There's nothing in Moodle that's going to let you really do that. So just important to note, because we're going to look at the options that you have provided for you now that can do some of that for you in just a minute. But this is a nice way of seeing, when was the last time something was used. You could see, is there an activity that nobody's clicked on in the last 6 months? Then maybe that's not a real popular activity, right? And then there's the course participation report. And this one, I think, is one that a lot of teachers aren't really all that familiar with. And this one is actually one of the more powerful reports within a course. So you click on the course participation report from within your course, and you can choose what specific activity it is that you're wanting to check on, okay? Now, you can look over a specific time period, so I'm just going to say in the last 6 months, and you can pick a specific role, so a student role, someone with a student role. And this one kind of bugs me because it defaults to manager or one of the other roles, and so I typically have to change it to student. You have to remember to change it. And then you can hit look for a specific action if you want, viewing or posting, and then you can hit go. Now, when you hit go, it's going to tell me, okay, this is the rubric assignment, and you can have assignment views or assignment posts. Those are the two options. So if I wanted to sort by post, that's going to include if they've submitted something, right? So now it gives me a link, and it's saying, here are all of my students. Here is the action I'm looking for. And you can see currently no one has posted to that assignment. Now I could look and say, has anyone even viewed it? And no one's gone in and done anything. So I hope that the deadline hasn't passed. But let's pretend the deadline has passed. I could actually go in and I could check all of the names of the people who had not turned in an assignment, and then I could send them a message from directly within Moodle. And this, to me, is why the course participation report is probably one of the more powerful ones, and I don't think enough teachers use it, because this is a very quick way for you to monitor very quickly who has done what they were supposed to do, and to send them a reminder that they haven't done it. Okay? Okay. So there are your options for you as far as reports that are built in. Now, we talked a little bit about some limitations of reports. They're really all text-based. There's not really any graphic display out there. And somebody had asked the logs used to include graphs. That was the old logging system, and most of those graphs really, they didn't have a lot of data in them. But the new logging system does not have that built in. So since 2.7, there really aren't any graphs in there. So they're all going to be text-based. And again, not all of the reports are downloadable. And as I mentioned a minute ago, there's not a lot of connection between reports. So I can pull up activity within one course, but there's not a way for me to then have Moodle compare activity amongst or between, well, I guess amongst several courses to have them tell me which course is the most active overall. There's nothing that's going to do that for me. Okay? So now let's look at what Remote Learner has been adding to Moodle sites and making available to our clients that is going to help fill some of those gaps. Actually, most of those gaps. And the first thing that I want to show you is the Remote Learner Dashboard. Now, the dashboard is actually a block. It's being rolled out, and it's going to replace the RL Update Manager block. And it is slowly being rolled out through all of our clients. And by the end of the year, it should automatically have been placed on your site. So if you're a site administrator, you will be able to access the RL Dashboard block from your front page. And it's usually down at the bottom somewhere, and you're probably used to seeing the RL Update Manager, and now it's going to be called RL Dashboard. And the bottom half of the block looks very similar to what the Update Manager looked like, but above that there is a link to the dashboard. And so when you click on that, it's going to pull up a widget-based interface. And I want to point this out because there are some statistical graphs and models in here for you, so there's some data that you can quickly retrieve from here. This is also where you're going to be able to go and manage your site pretty quickly, and it's really set up so that we can continue to add additional widgets. So I think this is going to become a more popular area for site administrators, at least, to go and quickly gather data about their site. So the first thing that you'll see in the dashboard is your support cases block, and that's going to list all of the support tickets that are currently open for that site. And you can submit a ticket through here, or you can go and view specific ticket details, and you can even sort. Since I only have one open ticket, it doesn't show you very well the sorting, but you can click on any of these headers to sort your ticket list. So this is really kind of a report about current support cases related to your site. So that could be very valuable to you. Then you also have an announcements block. It's going to come over here. Most of your sites, it'll actually have a server status at the top, and it'll tell you green if everything is good on your server. It'll let you know if there's something going on your server that we're addressing, and any announcements that Remote Learner sends out regarding server performance or server maintenance would show up in here for you to be able to access in one place. But here's where you're going to get into some of the statistics that are available to you. So you have some Moodle statistics available. This is just a general overview. It's going to give you the current version of Moodle that you're on. So if you're ever asked what version, that's a quick way to go and find out. And the total number of courses and users and how many of those have been active within the last, I believe, 7 days is the default setting for this widget to display for you. So there's just some very quick general information. But then over here you have traffic statistics. And this is something that you really didn't have in Moodle by itself. So this is going to tell you how many page views you've had. This is going to currently display on the live tab the last hour, and you'll notice it is interactive, so anytime I hover over a data point, it's going to explain the information in a little pop-up, so that it's easier for me to read. Okay, so it's not only page views, but unique users, meaning how many different users have logged into your site, and then AJAX requests, meaning that something on the site has been clicked in a server request. Now you can also go to the Archive tab, and this will give you the same information, but this is a scrollable chart, so you can scroll back in time over however long your site has been active. or at least as long as the widget has been placed on there. So you can see I can just move along through all the different dates, all the different times, and look at all of that data. And then you also have a load times report, and this is great if you have reports, people who have reported that your site is performing a little sluggishly. Then you want to go and check your load times and see if, is it just there was a hiccup at some point, or has it been slow for the last couple of hours. It's going to tell you how long it takes for individual pages to load. And it's also going to show you, like, how long does it take if you're at 50% of your user capacity, right? And if you're at 80% of your user capacity. And you can see kind of, oh, well, do we need to increase our capacity on that server because we seem to be at 80% quite frequently, something like that. And you can pretty much anticipate that there are going to be more statistics that are going to be added to this interface through additional tabs. Remote learners working on building those out right now. So something to look forward to, an easy way to kind of monitor the usage of your site. Now, the thing that most of you are probably here to hear about and are most excited about is that we recently have also partnered with IntelAboard in order to bring you a complete set of reports, including those graphs that everybody is looking for, including those comparative reports that are going to look at collection of courses or all of your courses on your site to give you that data about your site usage, and also be able to offer more reports to teachers where they can look at an individual student and track all of their activity in a more user-friendly interface than what Moodle's logs have to offer. So this is really going to fill that gap between all of the data that Moodle is collecting and the format that it's put in to make that data useful to you. Okay? Now, there are a couple of things to keep in mind about IntelAboard. First of all, you have to install the IntelAboard plugin on your site or you get access to nothing. So it is not installed automatically for you. That is a plugin that you would have to go and install. And you can actually do that through the RL Dashboard block on your site. Oops, and it was right there in front of me and I missed it. You just click the Manage Add-ons and you search for IntelAboard. And then you just tell it to update, and this is done by a site administrator. So your site administrator can do that through the RL Dashboard block or the RL Update Manager. If you don't have the dashboard block on your site yet, the RL Update Manager, you can still search for IntelAboard and add it to your site that way. Now, once the plugin is installed, what ends up happening is that within your site administration menu, or if you do the subscription later and you add teachers, then within their course administration menu, there would be an option for IntelAboard. All right, and when you open that up, it's usually at the bottom of the site administration menu. When you open that up, you get another submenu that's going to give you all of the options available to you. Now, some of the features for IntelAboard require you to have an IntelAboard subscription. So part of the partnership between Remote Learner and IntelAboard has been to offer a discounted subscription to all Remote Learner clients. And you can do the subscription directly from the IntelAboard plugin, or if you want to discuss it with your account executive, you can contact your account executive and they can walk you through all of the possible options. But I think that, if I remember correctly, the unlimited subscription that Remote Learner offers to its clients is a pretty significant discount, and that's the one that I think most of our users are going to be interested in. So keep that in mind. Without the subscription, though, everybody is going to have access to the IntelAboard dashboard. And that's basically going to give you site snapshots. And these are going to be little charts and graphs of users' activities, enrollments, and registrations. So let's go and look at that. Going into my site administration menu, down at the bottom, I see IntelAboard, and I'm going to click on the dashboard. And that is not the site's issue. This is actually, I apologize, we've had a lot of rain in my area. Let me refresh this so it'll display correctly. And I think our AT&T box got flooded, so every now and then my connection's slowing down a little bit. Okay, so this is what will display for you. this is the IntelAboard dashboard, and you can see here are your nice pretty charts and graphs, and it's going to give you user activity over the course of, right now it's month by month, right? But it also tells you how many today and how many this week have been going on. Now, you can actually go in under your plugins to your local plugins to IntelAboard's plugin, and there are a few settings that you can configure that are going to determine things like if it's talking about inactivity, how long does a user have to be inactive before they're considered inactive, that type of thing. And how frequent do you want to have AJAX sessions stored, things like that. And do you want to track your site administrators' usage also, which is typically set to default. So there are a few settings, default setting to know. There are a few settings that you can go in and configure that could alter the data that's going to show up in here. And again, what you're seeing in front of you right now is available to everyone, regardless of if you have the subscription. You just have to load the plugin. Okay, and we know that there are some people, especially, you know, our corporate government sites that are interested in seeing where all of their users are coming from, and a lot of our higher ed sites are interested in that too. How far does your distance learning program reach? You can see that based on your registration, and areas of the map will light up, and then you can hover over them and it will give you specifics. Okay, participation, it's looking at it's going to give you a list of the courses on your site, how many users are enrolled compared to how many have completed it. Your users overview, looking at your list of users and what they've been doing lately in their courses, what their current scores are, how many times they visited the site. Enrollments, what types of enrollments are popular on your site. Right now the site we're looking at only has cohort, method, and manual, but if you had PayPal, that would show up. If we're using the Ellis system, that would show up as a separate form of enrollment as well, and you can kind of keep track of how your users are getting in there. And yes, Betty Cheek is asking me, can this be used to track instructor inactivity? Yes, I'm going to show you some of the reports in just a minute as far as how you can monitor what your teachers are doing and how teachers can monitor what their students are doing. So all of this is available to you in the dashboard, again, without a subscription. Now, if you want information beyond the dashboard, then you're going to have a subscription. And that's going to open up the other areas. So what's going to happen is when you click on the Learners tab, if you don't have a subscription, it's going to tell you. And you can click on the button, and that will take you into IntelAboard.net, and you can then decide on your subscription package what level you want, that type of thing. Or you can talk to one of your remote learner account executives, and they'll give you the information and get you all set up. Now, once you have that subscription, you'll be able to see everything not only on the site, but also not only on your Moodle site within that Moodle plugin interface, but also on the IntelAboard.net website. So they're connected to one another. And here you can see we still have the same options that we had across the top are going to show up in our IntelAboard dashboard as well. So I'm going to click on Learners. And if you have the subscription set up, this information that would display right here in your course, and you can see it's there, but it's grayed out. You can't really read it all, but it would display all of this in there. Now, this is a demo site, so I don't have a lot of learners to show you, so let me flip over to courses. There will be a little more information that will show up. So you can see it's tracking my courses when they're created. It's letting me know this is a list of courses with 0 activity, so you would immediately know if a course is not being used. This is kind of useful if everybody on your campus has a course shell built for them. You'd know immediately if there are teachers who weren't using that at all, right? You can see which courses are the most active. You'd be able to chart all of those, which ones are the ones that are viewed the most. You can also get some information about the load on your server. This is going to tell you the HTTP requests that have come through, so what are people clicking on the most, languages that are being used on your site, sizes of courses, operating systems that are being used to access your site, and what browsers are being used to access your site. So a lot of information about your user population so that you can really get a good idea of where they're coming from. And all of the different report screens are going to give you what I call the scoreboard at the top of each one. That'll just give you some general stats about that particular area of your site. So here's more about your courses, how many you have, instructors that you have, learners that you have. Now the neat thing is that once you actually have the subscription set up and you have access to all of these reports, you also, as I mentioned, and let's look at some of these reports. You also, as I mentioned, have access to the IntelAboard.net. The reports tab, let me show you the big long list of reports. Where is it? Right here, the settings tab within Moodle. Oh, and it's not going to let me show it. Let me see if I can find the whole list. There is a huge list of reports. Here we go. You can look at some of these. A huge list of available reports that are standard in IntelAboard. So you can see learner reports, you can see course reports, you can see activity reports, you can look at individual stats for different types of modules. So dozens of reports that are available to you. Here's some site reports. There's your teaching activity report that you were looking for, Betty. Now, I can click on this and it's going to load, but unfortunately this is a demo site, so there's not a lot of teachers involved, but it'll tell you how many courses they have, how many files, how many videos, how many uploads. So it's really breaking down what goes into their courses. And then you can look at teaching performance. And you can see it'll tell you, again, the number of students they have, how active, the number of active students, right, and the average grade for all of the courses. So you really can get kind of some information about, here's your most active teachers. Again, not a lot of teachers to look at. So these reports are available standard with the subscription. And here's some screenshots of some that actually have some data. Here's a learning progress report that's going to talk about the time spent in courses and what scores are. Here's progress by learner. This is looking at it a little different way, a little more detailed with number of completed activities and completed courses, right? Here's specific performance, number of courses, how long they've spent on site, how long they've spent on activities altogether, overdue users, after a deadline has passed and you're expecting something, what their score is when they completed it. That's kind of like that course participation report. Here's student performance, looking for specific completed activities, progress through a specific course or through the site as a whole. So lots of different ways that you can look. Here's some course stats, course progress. Here's our activity stats. Here's specific activities, and it's looking at the average scores, how many people have visited them, how many have completed. Quiz attempts, if you're looking at specific quizzes. And here, you know, our forum stats, and you can see there are just a ton of them. And we're getting down to where we have about 10 minutes left, so I just want to make sure you have a chance to see. Here's the teacher performance that we looked at. Most active teachers, which if you scrolled all the way down through the list, you'd get to your least active teachers, right? Now, the interesting thing is that all of these reports that you see on IntelAboard, from within the plugin, you'll just get the graphs. But if you actually follow the links out to the IntelAboard.net site, then you get all of these additional options where you can download the reports as PDFs or spreadsheet style files that you can then disseminate however you need. You can also share reports, so you can go in and you can email them. And let me show you how easy this is. If I'm in any of my screens where I'm looking at a graphic representation of a report, I can click on the menu button in the right, and here's where I can share. I can get an embed code if I want to embed that graph into another website or maybe a presentation of some type. I can email it to anyone that's interested in it. I can come in and, as I said, I can download or export it, and then I can also schedule reports to run on a regular basis. right? And then I can have those reports emailed to whatever interested parties, and then I don't have to go back in and get them for them all the time. So I can tell it how frequently I want it, how I want it to be attached to the email, what format I want it in, and then it just does its own thing, right? In addition to that, you also, you also have the ability to create notifications. So I can go into my IntelAboard dashboard, into my notification center, and I have the ability to create notifications about specific activities. So if I want a course inactivity or a course failure notification, I could see this being very popular with course facilitators or instructors, and how frequent you want that being sent to you and which courses you want to have that tied to, so you can create your own notifications at any time. And then Don actually posted, and I don't think he realized that y'all can't see this, but if there is a report that you need that is not already included in the standard reports on IntelAboard, you can, free of charge, go and request the report. Now, this is for subscription holders, so it's not an additional charge if you have a subscription. Then this is something that it just is included in your subscription. And basically, you can give them all of the purpose of the report, how you're intending to have it used, what you think it should look like. You can even upload a spreadsheet template of how you kind of think the report should look and what fields should be expected in that report. And then if you have a deadline for this report, you can give them the deadline. Now, I will tell you that depending on the complexity of the report, it could take a couple of days to even a couple of weeks for more complex reports to be built. Then once those are built, you actually would have to update your IntelAboard plugin so that the plugin knows what data to gather and how to gather it when that report is being called, okay? So it's not like you can request the report and it's going to be there necessarily the next day. It could take a little bit of time, so give them some lead time, but there's no charge for that. And when somebody requests the report, part of the terms and conditions is that that report is then made available to the entire IntelAboard community. So if someone from another institution requests a report, it's eventually going to get added to your list of available reports. That's how that list continues to grow, okay? So that's part of and inclusive in all of the subscription that we've been talking about. Now, I have several questions that have already come in, so I'm going to kind of stop and look through some of these to make sure that we've addressed some of them. Let's see. Yes, the RL, somebody asked if the RL dashboard was available for 2.7. Yes, that's going to be rolled out automatically. Anybody on 2.7 or above will be able to receive that dashboard block, and it looks the exact same on all of the versions. So it will be put on your site for you. They're in the process of rolling those out, so it will just happen. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. And there's no change, like there's no loss of functionality. So if you're used to using the RL Update Manager block, everything you could do through that, you can do through the dashboard block, but now you can do more, okay? I was asked, is there a list of all of the fields that are searched for each report? I do not know of a list off the top of my head. Now you can go and you can pull a report and it'll tell you what it's looking for. I mean, if I click it, but ahead of time, no. So it'll pull up the fields here and you can see what they are, but I don't know of a list somewhere. Now, IntelAboard.net might be able to give us something that we could pass on to you. That would be something we would have to ask your account executive to talk with IntelAboard and find out about. And I do want to make something clear on this because I know this is an issue for a lot of sites when they're talking about the privacy of data. And I want to make sure you understand that I have the ability, I can go in, we have another demo site that has a lot more data that I can show you. And the reason I didn't pull any of those up is because there's so much data on this site that it takes a while for the report to load typically. So it's kind of slower than our demo site. But one of the reasons it takes so long for it to load, and that actually was pretty quick, one of the reasons it might take a little bit for it to load is the fact that your data is not housed on IntelAboard.net. So every time you go in to run a report, that that site says, hey, Moodle, I need you to give me this data so that I can display it. And it pulls it and then it displays it through IntelAboard.net, but it is never saved on that site. It's not cached anywhere. So if I leave this report and I go back into the same report, it's got to pull that again. So you're always getting current information, and it's not saving any of that data on any server other than your own Moodle server. So I know that's very important for people as far as their privacy is concerned. Okay. I'm being asked, is it possible to get the instructor and or student activity based on categories of courses? You know, I am not sure. I know you can do individual, but if you're talking about categories within your course catalog, that might be a custom report that you would have to put in, because you're going to be able to look at course stats and course progress by reports. Oh, and this one's going to take a while. I apologize. I didn't change it to my other side. There we go. But it's not necessarily breaking it down by your course catalog categories. So that might be a custom report that might need to be requested. But again, give them a few days and they'll build it, and it's free of charge. There is not currently an ad hoc reporting feature. Someone asked that question. But you can get the custom report with enough lead time, and they'll just add that to your reports list, and then that style of report is available to you pre-configured at the call, you know, at the click of a button once they've created it. Someone's asking me what the subscription fee would be. I'm going to have to defer that. I think Don Hazelwood is in here, and he's one of our account execs, and I am not in sales, so I do not know. It depends on the actual subscription that you choose, because they have subscriptions that are monthly that are available, and then they have annual subscriptions that are available. And then they also have some where you can have limited access to reports, or you can do the unlimited access to reports. I know the best deal is the remote learner unlimited access, but I am not sure of a price. So you would have to talk to your account executive, or we'll see if Dawn can get us some information before we leave here. And Dawn, if you get that, throw it in the question area for me so I can see it. Is it possible to subscribe for site admins only? I would assume that would be if you chose one that was a more limited account. The unlimited account is going to allow you, you can see on the dashboard here, I think it's on the dashboard, it might be in the settings. There are so many things called dashboards. It gets a little confusing at times. I understand that. Okay, so that's the dashboard. It's going to be in your settings then. Yeah, where you have the ability to choose who has accounts and what users are going to have access to reports. So, and let me show you, I mean, there's some neat stuff in here as far as from a teacher's perspective, looking at some of these. Let's go into just one of our active users. If I click on the link, let me show you one of the other screens that will come up, and it's going to take it just a minute because, again, this is a much bigger site, so it's going to take it a minute to load. But it's going to let you really drill down and see individual user activity, and I could see that being very useful to teachers who are trying to track their students. What is the timeline for the dashboard rollout to be completed? My understanding is that they're trying to finish it all by the end of November, but it might stretch into December a little bit. So I would expect in the coming weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, you'll see that dashboard block show up on your site. And that was 2 people who asked that, so hopefully I answered both of you. Do individual instructors have access to reports for individual courses? Yes, they would be able to access from within their course administration menu. They would have their own IntelAboard, and they can come in, and they would get access to different portions of IntelAboard.net. So when they pull up their learners, it's going to be their learners for their courses, not for the site as a whole. So it is going to restrict them down to what they have rights to. But you can see this is when they click on a user, and it's going to tell them the total time the users have spent, the courses they're enrolled in, how many course completions they finished, their average grade, and it will give them specific days. It will highlight days when that user has been active on the site. You can see there's one over here in November, and that has some activity, and then a few other days that have activity. So those teachers would be able to see if a student's gone missing. Are they missing completely from all of their courses, or are they just not participating in that instructor's course? They could go and see, well, they've been really active that day, but they haven't done anything in my course, and so that would give them a little more information about that user. What kind of reports can you get without a subscription? For the IntelAboard, the only thing available to you without the subscription are those snapshots on the dashboard. So you can come into the dashboard and you'd be able to look at the information, and you could print your screen and you could take a screen capture of it, but there's not going to be any other options available to you. So you have to have some level of subscription to get the bulk of the reporting. And somebody says, is the IntelAboard plugin associated with an extra cost? No. The IntelAboard plugin can be loaded for free, and you can play around with the dashboard, and you can kind of, you can go look at the learner stuff, and then if you think at any time that this is going to be something that y'all want to pursue and use more extensively, then you can then upgrade and add a subscription to it, and you could start off with a smaller subscription if you wanted, although you're going to get the best deal and the most information with the Remote Learner Unlimited. And they ask you, even if you don't do the subscription through your account executive, if you go to IntelAboard to do it yourself, they actually ask you if you're associated like with a hosting, and if Remote Learner is an option in there, and that's how you choose it to get the discounted version. And Dawn said you probably want to contact your account executive to find out the pricing for your the subscriptions that would be available to you, and they could probably talk to you about which actual subscription would probably be the best fit for your organization, depending on how many sites you have in your organization, depending on how many users you have, that type of information. So they're going to be able to walk you through it a lot better than I can. I can show you how to use it, but I don't do the sales portion. I've hit the bottom of my questions so far, and I have 3 minutes left. So are there any other questions that you might have for me? Happy to continue answering them to show you some of the information available. You can see it's a lot. This is not even all of the reports available to you, what I showed you. There are just so many different ones. And I personally love the fact that any of them can be scheduled. Managing our training site, we have several reports that are run on a weekly basis, and it's nice for me not to have to go and get them, for them just to show up in my inbox, right? So now you could probably make your Moodle logs do this, but it's going to take a lot of work, because you're going to have to download and make your spreadsheets and have them pull graphs, and the way that the data is collected, some of these, especially when they're comparing the activity within different courses, there is just not a good way to do that using the logging system in Moodle. They have really got it. They've got it set up so that it makes it really easy and straightforward, and it's, for those of you who need that kind of information, it's definitely worth the extra subscription. And another question came in. Yes, somebody asked, is the IntelAboard plugin currently available? Yes, you can, if you're a site administrator, download the IntelAboard plugin yourself from either the RL Update Manager block or the RL Dashboard block, whichever one is on your site. You click the Manage Add-ons, and it takes you in to the list of plugins, and you can actually just type in IntelAboard, and it will show up. It's going to take a minute to load that whole database, and then you can click the install and run through the install process. If you don't feel comfortable doing that yourself, you can go to the Remote Learner Support portal. You can put in a ticket to have the IntelAboard plugin installed for you. Okay. Now, if you do have a subscription to the site, to IntelAboard site, then you might have to, the first time you go in, put in, and see, I gummed up the works because I told it to go load something, and now it's gummed it up. You might have to put in a support request when you have your IntelAboard subscription account established, to make sure that it syncs with your site, so that some of that data, some of those little graphs and charts, you can view right within Moodle, within the IntelAboard interface on your Moodle site. You don't necessarily have to go out to IntelAboard.net. IntelAboard.net is always available to you, but any of these learner graphs and charts or course graphs and charts, these type of little snapshots, you can view from within Moodle itself once your subscription is tied to your Moodle account. Now, from within Moodle, you don't have the menu options. So you would actually, within Moodle, click on the graph and it would take you to the corresponding page in IntelAboard.net, and then you could schedule or share or export from there. Okay. Let's see if it's still not opening. Interesting. Any other questions? Oh, I have another question. Another person has asked, when can they expect the RL dashboard to show up? It's going to show up sometime within the next 4 to 6 weeks. It should be up there in the next 4 to 6 weeks. They had put it out on select client sites to do some beta testing to make sure everything was working correctly. Actually, they did alpha testing. Now I believe they're in beta testing, making sure that everything is still functioning the way they want and that it's not slowing anything down. And then they are going to begin rolling it out to client sites. And Diana asked if there is a recording of the webinar that will be sent out, and yes, there is. That will go out to you automatically with the follow-up email that you should receive within the next 24 hours. There'll be a link to the video so that you can review all of this information. And if you have any questions after that, you can always reply to that email, or you can reach out and contact your account executive, or just go to Remote Learner's website and go to the contact tab to reach out to someone, because we are happy to answer any questions about any of this. Make sure you're all set up the way that you need to be so that you can get the information that you need. Any other questions for me? I see we're coming up at the end of our hour. Actually, we've gone over by a couple minutes. Just don't want to keep any of you from anything. Well, hopefully this was useful, and I hope you're as excited about the possibilities of what is now available to you that may not have been there before. I know reporting, I've been teaching site administrator courses and trainings for the last 2 years for Remote Learner, and this is always one of those topics that when you talk to people about Moodle, this is one of those areas that they feel has been somewhat lacking, I think, in a lot of ways. It's not that it's not collecting data, it's just not in any kind of format that makes it easy to use and that makes it meaningful. And hopefully this IntelAboard option has really come along and it really kind of revolutionizes the way that you look at your site and its usage. It puts it all there for you. It does all of the work to extrapolate meaning out of all of those numbers. Well, y'all have a wonderful day, and look for that email tomorrow with the recording, and let us know if you have any questions or if we can help you get anything set up.